The Tragic Lives of the Cast of the Little Rascals. Our Gang, also known as The Little Rascals or Hal Roach's Rascals, is an American series of comedy short films chronicling a group of poor neighborhood children and their adventures. Created by film producer Hal Roach, also the producer of the Laurel and Hardy films, Our Gang shorts were produced from 1922 to 1944, spanning the silent film and early sound film periods of American cinema. Our Gang is noted for showing children behaving in a relatively natural way. Roach and original director worked to film the unaffected, raw nuances apparent in regular children, rather than have them imitate adult acting styles. The series also broke new ground by portraying white and black children interacting as equals during the Jim Crow era of racial segregation in the United States. The franchise began in 1922 as a silent short subject series produced by the Roach Studio and released by Pathé Exchange. Roach changed distributors from Pathé to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer or MGM in 1927, and the series entered its most popular period after converting to sound in 1929. Production continued at Roach until 1938, when the Our Gang production unit was sold to MGM, where production continued until 1944. Across 220 short films, the Our Gang series featured over 41 child actors as regular members of its cast. Here are the tragic lives of some of the cast members. Carl "Alfalfa" Switzer was born on 8 August 1927 and was an American singer, child actor, dog breeder and guide. He was best known for his role as Alfalfa in the short subjects series Our Gang. In the midst of his legal and financial woes, Switzer agreed to train a hunting dog, a treeing walker coonhound, for Moses Samuel Bud Stilts. Stilts was a longtime friend and sometime business partner, whom Switzer had met while working with Roy Rogers on various productions at the Corriganville Movie Ranch. While in Switzer's possession, the dog ran off, to chase after a bear. Stilts was unsympathetic toward Switzer, firm in his demands that the former child star must either return his dog or pay him the equivalent of the dog's value. Unable to produce cash to settle the debt, Switzer took out ads in newspapers and put up flyers, offering a reward for the safe return of the animal. Eventually, the dog was located and brought to the bar where Switzer was working at the time. The rescuer was rewarded with $35 in cash and $15 in alcoholic beverages, the equivalent of about $450 in 2020. The loss of his $50 did not sit well with Switzer. During an emotional conversation with his friend, 37-year-old unit still photographer Jack Piot, that took place a few days later, the two decided that Stilts should reimburse Switzer the finder's fee. Their argument was that the dog was Stilts's and not Switzer's. The two soon arrived at Stilts's home in Mission Hills. Stilts shared the home with his wife, Rita Corrigan, and his stepchildren. Switzer and Piot intended to demand money of Stilts. Though differing accounts of the event exist, all agree that Stilts was struck over the left side of his head with a glass clock. He later retreated to his room to retrieve a .38 caliber revolver, which Switzer wrestled him for. Their struggle caused the gun to discharge and almost shoot Tom Corrigan, Stilts's 14-year-old stepson. Stilts's account of the event was one of self-defense, testifying that Switzer had banged on his front door, yelling, "Let me in, or I'll kick in the door." The threat was followed by a struggle that began with one of the men, Switzer or Piot, striking Stilts with the clock. This prompted Stilts to retrieve his firearm, which Switzer grabbed for. The gun discharged accidentally, almost shooting Corrigan. Switzer then, according to Stilts, threatened him with a knife and yelled, "I'm going to kill you." Stilts fired and shot Switzer in the groin, damaging an artery that caused massive internal bleeding. Switzer was dead when he arrived at the hospital. Tom Corrigan's account differed significantly from his stepfather's. He told investigators that Stilts shot Switzer as he and Piot were leaving. After the gun's accidental discharge that almost hit Corrigan, Switzer, according to Corrigan, had a moment of clarity about the situation. He turned to Piot and said they needed to leave. The two were headed for the door when Stilts then fired the fatal shot. Switzer never drew a knife, as Stilts had claimed he had. However, Corrigan was never called to testify at the coroner's inquest, and Stilts testified in his favor. His testimony was taken to be truthful, despite physical evidence that contradicted his account and his past perjury conviction. Years later, Corrigan stood by what he told officers had happened that night, and said his stepfather did not have to kill Switzer. Darla Jean Hood, born on 8 November 1931, she was an American child actress, best known as the leading lady in the Our Gang series from 1935 to 1941. She was born in Leedy, Oklahoma, the only child of music teacher Elizabeth Davner, and James Claude Hood, who worked in a bank. Hood was busy organizing the 1980 Little Rascals reunion for the Los Angeles chapter of the Sons of the Desert when she underwent an appendectomy at Canoga Park Hospital, Canoga Park, California. After the procedure, she died suddenly of heart failure on June 13, 1979, at age 47. An autopsy disclosed that Hood had contracted acute hepatitis from a blood transfusion given during the operation, which led to her death. Matthew Beard Jr., born on 1 January 1925, was an American actor. As a child actor, he was most famous for portraying the character of Stymie in the Our Gang short films from 1930 to 1935. The role was so high profile that he adopted the name Stymie Beard, being credited as such in some later roles, such as his 1978 appearance in the Buddy Holly story. He was a native of Los Angeles, California. Beard suffered a stroke on 3 January 1981, 2 days after his 56th birthday, sustained head injuries from falling down a flight of stairs, and died of pneumonia on January 8, 1981. He was living in Los Angeles at the time of his death. Richard Daniels Jr., born the 11th of October 1914, known professionally as Mickey Daniels, was an American actor. Signed by Hal Roach in 1921, he was a regular in the popular Our Gang comedies during the silent era of the series, between 1922 and 1926. Daniels became a chronic alcoholic and was found dead on August 20, 1970, in a transient hotel in San Diego. His death was attributed to cirrhosis. William Robert Laughlin, born on 5 July 1932, was an American child actor. He is best known for playing the character Froggy in the Our Gang short films in its final stretch, from 1940 to 1944. Laughlin died at a hospital on 31 August 1948 after a speeding truck struck the Cushman motor scooter, on which he was delivering newspapers near his home in La Puente, California. The 16-year-old friend who was operating the scooter, John Wilbrand, made a U-turn in front of the truck, but survived with minor injuries. Laughlin was survived by his parents, his two brothers Claude and Mickey, and his maternal grandmother. The scooter was given to Laughlin by his parents 2 weeks prior to the accident. Only 16, Laughlin died younger than any of the other actors who appeared in the Our Gang films. Laughlin is interred in a grave at the Rose Hills Memorial Park Cemetery in Whittier, California next to his parents. Norman Myers Chaney, born on 18 October 1914, was an American child actor, notable for appearing in 19 Our Gang comedies as Chubby, from 1929 to 1931. After leaving the series, Chaney returned to his native Baltimore and attended public school, where he excelled in his studies. In spite of having a normal diet and regular exercise since childhood, he continued to gain weight and eventually topped 300 pounds, though he never grew beyond 4 feet 7 inches. His weight continued to increase, and it was discovered that he had a glandular ailment. In 1935, Chaney underwent treatment for the ailment at Johns Hopkins Hospital. His weight then dropped from over 300 pounds to less than 140 pounds. Chaney became seriously ill from the stress on his body the rapid weight loss caused and died from myocarditis on May 29, 1936 at age 21, according to his death certificate. At the time of his death, Chaney weighed 110 pounds. He was the first of the regular Our Gang alumni to die. Chaney was buried in Baltimore Cemetery in his hometown. His grave remained unmarked for 76 years because his mother was not able to afford a marker for him or herself. Even though he was paid a weekly salary for his movie appearances, he never received any royalties or residuals for the film's subsequent uses. An online fundraising drive led by Detroit rock musician Mikkel raised $4,500 for headstones to be placed at the graves of both Chaney and his mother. They were unveiled in late 2012.
Scott Hastings Beckett, born on 4 October 1929, was an American actor. He began his career as a child actor in the Our Gang shorts and later co-starred on Rocky Jones, Space Ranger. On May 8, 1968, Beckett checked into a Los Angeles nursing home to seek medical attention after suffering a serious beating. The circumstances surrounding it were never made clear. He was found dead in his room on 10 May 1968. He was 38 years old. A note and pills were found, but the Los Angeles County coroner stated that an exact cause of death was unknown even though an autopsy had been performed. While no official cause of death has been listed, various media reports state that he overdosed on either barbiturates or alcohol. Robert E. Hutchins, born on 29 March 1925, was an American child actor who was a regular in the Our Gang short subjects series from 1927 to 1933. A native of Tacoma, Washington, he was given the nickname of Wheezer after running around the studios on his first day so much that he began to wheeze. Hutchins was killed in a mid-air collision on 17 May 1945, while trying to land a North American AT-6 DNT Texan plane of the 3026th Base Unit, when it struck an AT-6C-15NT Texan, 42-49068, of the same unit at Merced Army Airfield in Merced, California, later known as Castle Air Force Base, during a training exercise. The other pilot, Edward F. Hamill, survived. Hutchins's mother, Olga Hagerson Hutchins, had been scheduled to travel to the airfield for his graduation from flying school, which would have occurred the week after he died. Harold Frederick Switzer, born on 16 January 1925, was an American child actor, most notable for appearing in the Our Gang short subjects series as an extra. He was the older brother of gang member Carl Alfalfa Switzer, one of the series' most popular and best-remembered characters. Harold Switzer did not pursue an on-screen career after leaving the Our Gang series, and his Our Gang appearances would remain his only film credits. Though not saddled with the same problems his younger brother was faced with due to being typecast as a child star, Harold had his own problems. For several years, he operated a Speed Queen company franchise, installing and servicing washers and dryers. In 1967, after killing a customer over a dispute, Switzer drove himself to a remote area near Glendale, California and killed himself. He was 42. Donald Haynes, born on 19 May 1919, was an American child actor who had recurring appearances in the Our Gang short subjects series from 1930 to 1933. He appeared in Our Gang during the early sound days. Haynes enlisted as an aviation cadet in the United States Army Air Forces on December 10, 1941. To serve in World War II. He was killed in action on the 20th of February 1943 in North Africa. At the time of his death, his rank was first lieutenant. Robert Howard Young, born on 15 September 1917, was professionally known as Clifton Young, was an American film actor. Young died on September 10, 1951, in a hotel fire that started when he fell asleep while smoking. Charles Joseph Parrott, born on 20 October 1893, known professionally as Charlie Chase, was an American comedian, actor, screenwriter and film director best known for his work in Hal Roach short film comedies. He was the elder brother of comedian and director James Parrott. In 1937, Chase began working at Columbia Pictures, where he spent the rest of his career starring in his own series of two reel comedies, as well as producing and directing other Columbia comedies, including those of the Three Stooges and Andy Clyde. He directed the Stooges' classic Violent is the Word for Curly in 1938. Although he is often credited with writing the film's song Swinging the Alphabet, the tune actually originates with 19th-century songwriter Septimus Winter. Recent research asserts that the Chase family's maid introduced the song to Chase and taught it to his daughters. Chase's own shorts at Columbia favored broader sight gags and more slapstick than his earlier, subtler work, although he does sing in two of the Columbias, The Grand Hooter and The Big Squirt in 1937. Many of Chase's Columbia short subjects were strong enough to be remade in the 1940s with other comedians. Chase's The Heckler in 1940 was remade with Shemp Howard as Mr. Noisy in 1946, while The Nightshirt Bandit in 1938 was remade with Andy Clyde as Go Chase Yourself in 1948 and again in 1956 as Pardon My Nightshirt. Chase reportedly suffered from depression and alcoholism for most of his professional career, and his tumultuous lifestyle began to take a serious toll on his health. His hair had turned prematurely gray, and he dyed it jet black for his Columbia comedies. Years later, Hal Roach said, "I never saw him drunk at the studio, and I never saw him sober outside of it." His younger brother, comedy writer-director James Parrott, had personal problems resulting from a drug treatment, and died in 1939. Chase was devastated. He had refused to give his brother money to support his drug habit, and friends knew he felt responsible for Parrott's death. He coped with the loss by throwing himself into his work and by drinking more heavily than ever, despite doctors' warnings. The stress ultimately caught up with him. Just over a year after his brother's death, Charlie Chase died of a heart attack in Hollywood, California, on the 20th of June 1940.
Check out our new videos on our channel, where new celebrity news is coming soon. And subscribe to our YouTube channel, and ring that bell, so you don't miss a single thing.